In 1952, Hollywood told a young bodybuilder he was too big for the camera. Studios asked him to lose weight. Male leads refused to stand next to him. Some say legends are built on genetics. Others say they're made of hard work. But what if both were real? He was a bodybuilder turned movie star. Imagine a man whose physique defied logic. A body so perfect that cameras struggled to frame him. His name was Steve Reeves. And if no one had measured him, we might not have believed a word. From measurements that break the laws of proportion to strength that shattered records, he did the impossible. But this isn't fantasy. These moments were real. They were documented. And today, you'll see them. The ones that would sound like lies if the tape measure hadn't been there. Number 1. Hollywood's problem. It was 1952. Steve Reeves walked into a Hollywood casting office. At 6'1" and 216 pounds of solid muscle, he looked like a Greek statue come to life. The casting directors stared. Then they said the words no actor ever expects to hear. You're too big, not too short, not too thin. Too big. His chest measured 52 inches. His waist, just 29. The studio photographers couldn't frame him next to other actors. He made everyone else look small. Male leads refused to stand next to him in publicity shots. So, Hollywood made a request. Lose 20 pounds. Slim down. Fit the mold. Steve tried. He cut back on training. He ate less. After weeks of effort, he'd lost 12 pounds. That was it. His body refused to go further. My body just wouldn't get smaller, he later said. My frame and muscle shape were what they were. Cecil B. DeMille wanted him for Samson and Delilah in 1949, asked him to drop 15 to 20 pounds. Steve refused. I'd worked hard to attain my all-muscle physique, he said. The role went to Victor Mature instead. For 3 years, Hollywood kept trying to change him. Finally, they stopped. They couldn't. His body was too perfect for the camera to handle. Without those documented studio requests, we'd never believe a man was rejected for looking too good. But it happened. And 6 years later, that problem physique would make him the highest paid actor in Europe. Number 2. The perfect measurements. June 29th, 1947. Lane Tech High School, Chicago. The Mr. America competition. Steve Reeves was 21 years old. When the officials measured him, they thought their tape was broken. Height, 6'1". Weight, 216 pounds. Then came the numbers that shouldn't exist. Chest, 52 inches. Waist, 29 inches. Arms, 18¼ inches. Calves, 18¼ inches. Neck, 18¼ inches. Read those again. His arms, calves, and neck were within 1 inch of each other. Perfect symmetry, the classical ideal that sculptors dreamed of for centuries. And he'd built it in a Montana gym at age 21. The chest-to-waist ratio, 52 to 29. That's 1.79 to 1. Modern bodybuilders, even with steroids, rarely hit 1.6 to 1. Steve did it naturally, before steroids even existed in bodybuilding. These weren't pumped measurements taken after a workout. These were cold measurements. Official AAU competition records. No tricks, no flexing games. Just a tape measure and a clipboard. At 6'1", most men his height weigh 180 pounds, or carry a 34-inch waist. Steve weighed 216 with a 29-inch waist. Do the math. That's 36 pounds of extra muscle with a waist 5 inches smaller than average. The Encyclopedia Britannica lists these measurements. The AAU records confirm them. The Steve Reeves International Society verified them. These numbers are in MuscleMemory.com's official database. Without that documentation, you'd call it impossible. A 52-inch chest on a 29-inch waist at 216 pounds, naturally. It sounds like someone made it up, but the records exist, and they're official. Even today, sports scientists study those measurements. They call them the most aesthetically perfect proportions ever recorded. Number 3. The Kneeling Clean, York, Pennsylvania. 1950. The York Barbell Club. This was the mecca of American strength. The toughest lifters in the country trained here. Men who could move weights that would crush ordinary people. Steve Reeves walked in. Young, handsome, symmetrical. Some of the hardcore lifters sneered. Pretty boy, show muscles. Probably can't lift the bar. One day, they were talking about unusual feats of strength. Someone mentioned cleaning heavy weight. Steve listened quietly. Then he walked to the 45-pound plates. Started loading a barbell, 225 pounds. The room went quiet. Everyone watched. Steve knelt down, not squatting, not standing, kneeling, both knees on the floor. Then he grabbed the bar, and with no leg drive, he cleaned 225 pounds from the floor to his shoulders. Pure upper body and core strength. The bar rose smooth and fast, locked at his clavicles. He held it, then lowered it. The room erupted. John Grimek was there. Mr. America, 1940 and 1941. Mr. Universe, 1948. One of the most respected men in the history of bodybuilding. He witnessed it personally. Later, he wrote about it. Steve could, as an impromptu feat of strength, clean a 225-pound barbell from the floor while kneeling, Grimek documented. Years later, Dennis B. Weiss tried to replicate this feat. He practiced for months, eventually hit 250 pounds, kneeling. It took extensive training. And Weiss confirmed something important. This movement is extraordinarily difficult. Most trained athletes can't do it with half the weight. Steve did it impromptu. No warm-up, no preparation, just raw strength. Without Grimek's eyewitness account, this would sound like gym mythology, the kind of story that grows with each telling. But Grimek documented it, and Grimek didn't exaggerate, ever. Number 4, the Reeves deadlift. Same gym, same year, but this time the doubt was louder. Pretty muscles don't mean real strength, someone said. The comment carried through the gym. It was a challenge. A test. The York lifters wanted proof. Steve heard it. He didn't argue. Didn't defend himself. Just 3 words. Follow me. He walked to the Olympic bar. 7 feet long. Started loading plates. 45 pounds. Another. The bar bent under the weight. Approximately 400 pounds total. Then Steve did something no one expected. He didn't grip the bar normally. Instead, he reached down, arms fully extended, spanning more than 6 feet, and he gripped only the outer rims of the 45-pound plates, just his fingertips, on the edge of the plates. This grip position eliminates all mechanical advantage. Your hands are 6 feet apart. The weight pulls down and out simultaneously. It's like trying to hold 2 buckets at arm's length while they're being pulled toward the ground. Steve set his stance, took a breath, and deadlifted 400 pounds. By his fingertips, the bar rose, smooth, controlled. No hitching, no struggle. He stood fully upright, held it, then lowered it. The gym went silent. Then chaos. No one had ever seen anything like it. John Grimek documented this moment too. Multiple independent sources confirmed it. And today, that movement has a name. It's called the Reeves deadlift, named after the man who proved his pretty muscles were strong muscles. Modern powerlifters attempt this lift. Most fail. The grip strength required is inhuman. The core stability needed is extraordinary. And Steve did it to prove a point. Without those eyewitness accounts, it would be dismissed as impossible. But the sources are credible. Multiple witnesses, contemporary documentation, and an exercise that still bears his name 75 years later. Number 5. Combat and malaria. February 1945. The Philippines. Steve Reeves was 18 years old, not a movie star, not a bodybuilder, a combat infantryman with the 25th Infantry Division. He'd landed at Lingayen Beach in January, pushed inland through the jungle. The heat was suffocating, the humidity crushed you, and the enemy was dug in, waiting. The Battle of Balit Pass, one of the bloodiest actions of the Pacific War. Steve was there, in the jungle, under fire. He earned the Combat Infantryman's Badge. That's not a participation trophy. You earn it by engaging the enemy in ground combat. Malaria, complicated by serious jungle fever. In World War II, 60 to 65% of soldiers in the South Pacific contracted malaria. In the 1942 Philippines campaign alone, 24,000 of 75,000 defenders got it. The fever hit hard. Uncontrollable shaking, burning skin, delirium. He was evacuated to the 7th Evacuation Hospital, then to Manila. For weeks, he fought the disease while it ate through his muscle. When he finally recovered, he'd lost over 20 pounds. Some sources say 25. At 18 years old, watching the physique he'd built disappear, muscle by muscle, pound by pound. He was discharged September 18th, 1946. Came home to Montana, thin, depleted, hollow-eyed. 2 years later, June 29th, 1947, he walked on stage in Chicago and won Mr. America at 21 years old, with a body that official records called the most aesthetically perfect proportions ever recorded, from nearly dying in a jungle to becoming the youngest Mr. America winner in 26 months. Naturally, no steroids, no shortcuts, just iron, food, and will. His military records confirm the service. The Steve Reeves International Society documents the malaria. The AAU records prove the victory. The timeline is verified. Without that documentation, it would sound like a Hollywood script. Too perfect, too dramatic. But it happened. Every bit of it. Number 6. 7-week comeback, 1950. Steve Reeves walked into York Barbell Club after a year away. John Grimek saw him immediately and thought, "This isn't the Reeves I competed against." Steve looked depleted, smaller, softer. He'd taken a full year off from serious training, and it showed. He did not look like the Reeves I had competed against only a year before, Grimek later wrote. This Reeves looked like he had lost everything except his legs. But Steve had a goal, the NABBA Mr. Universe contest in London. In 7 weeks, modern bodybuilders take 12 to 16 weeks minimum for contest prep. Steve had half that time, and he was starting from depleted. He trained at York, day after day. John Grimek watched the transformation. Within 5 weeks, Grimek documented, he had regained his muscular physique. 7 weeks later, September 1950, Steve stood on stage in London against Reg Park, future Mr. Universe, future Hercules star himself. The judges couldn't decide. They declared a tie, required a final pose down to break it. Steve won Mr. Universe after 7 weeks of training, after a year off, naturally, without Grimek's eyewitness article in Muscular Development magazine, November 1964. This timeline would be impossible to believe. Modern muscle memory doesn't work that fast, except Steve's did. The science is clear. Muscle memory exists, but regaining championship condition in 7 weeks, after a year off, that's genetic potential meeting iron discipline. Grimek didn't lie. The competition records don't lie. The timeline is documented. September 1950, Mr. Universe, after 7 weeks. If cameras hadn't captured that victory, if Grimek hadn't written about the transformation, no one would believe it. Number 7, Hercules Phenomenon, 1958, a low-budget Italian film, shot in Rome, directed by Pietro Francisci, lead actor salary, $10,000. The film was called Le Fétiche d'Hercule, in English, Hercules. When Joseph E. Levine saw it, he thought it was terrible. One of the worst pictures I ever saw, he later admitted. But he saw something else. Steve Reeves's physique, that body on screen. He knew. "I knew it had great appeal," Levine said. He bought the U.S. distribution rights, spent $1.25 million on promotion, more money than the entire film cost to make. And he was right. The film opened in the U.S. in 1959, made $1 million in the first 10 days. In Italy, 5,838,816 tickets sold. In France, 2,106. In Germany, $23,073,000. Worldwide, 66,600,000 tickets. Not dollars. Tickets. 66.6 million individual people who paid to see Steve Reeves as Hercules. The box office is verified. IMDb confirms it. Warner Brothers archives document it. Wikipedia cites multiple sources. The numbers are real. And the impact? 170 sword and sandal films were made by the mid-1960s. An entire genre created because Steve Reeves's body on screen was something audiences had never seen before. Audiences had never seen anyone like Steve Reeves, film historians note. His body was a revelation and novelty. From a $10,000 paycheck to 66.6 million tickets worldwide. Without those box office records, it would sound like Hollywood exaggeration. But the documentation exists. The phenomenon was real. And by 1960, Steve Reeves was the #1 box office draw in 25 countries. The highest paid actor in Europe, from $10,000 to $250,000 per picture in 3 years. Number 8, the chain scene. During Hercules, there's a climactic battle. Steve had to swing heavy wooden chains, painted to look like steel, at enemy soldiers. These weren't props. They were heavy, solid wood, thick, designed to look authentic. Director Pietro Francisci set up the shot. "Action!" Steve swung the chains, but he held back. He didn't want to hurt the stuntmen. They were just doing their job. So he pulled his swings, controlled the impact, kept everyone safe. "Cut!" Franzese yelled. He walked over, frustrated. "Swing those chains," he demanded. Steve explained. "I didn't want to really strike someone, so I kind of held back with my motions." Franzese looked at him, then said something that perfectly captured 1950s Italian filmmaking. "If they don't get hurt, they don't get paid." This was the culture. Stuntmen got hazard pay. The more dangerous the stunt, the more they earned. If Steve held back, he was costing them money. So Franzese ordered Steve to swing full force, and Steve did. This moment is documented in IMDb's biography and trivia section, verified across multiple sources, and it reveals something important. Directors had to tell Steve to stop holding back. His natural strength was so great that his restrained swings weren't even convincing. He had to be ordered to use his real power. Without that documented quote from Franzese, this would sound like Hollywood mythology, but it's verified, and it shows both Steve's physical power and his concern for the people around him. Number 9. Shoulder dislocation, 1959. The last days of Pompeii. Steve was driving a chariot through the streets of ancient Rome, full speed. The horses were running, the wheels were bouncing. Everything felt under control. The impact was violent. Steve's shoulder dislocated. The joint tore from its socket. The pain was immediate and agonizing. On a modern Hollywood set, production would stop. Medics would rush in. The actor would go to the hospital. Physical therapy, recovery time, months off. But this was 1959 Italy, and Steve Reeves wasn't going to stop the film. He reached up, grabbed his own shoulder, and snapped it back into the socket by himself through agonizing pain, then got back on the chariot and finished the scene. But the injury wasn't done. In a later underwater escape scene, swimming through the submerged ruins of Pompeii, Steve re-injured the same shoulder. The pain returned. Worse than before, he finished the film anyway. Few people realize that during the making of Pompeii, I dislocated my shoulder when the chariot I was driving slid into a tree, Steve later said. Despite the agonizing pain, Steve was able to snap the shoulder back into its socket, Ebesco Research Starters documented. This injury wasn't a one-time thing. It plagued him for the rest of his film career. The injury would be aggravated by his stunt work in each successive film, Wikipedia notes, ultimately leading to his retirement from filmmaking. He made films for 9 more years with that damaged shoulder, did his own stunts, lifted actors, fought on camera until 1968, when A Long Ride from Hell finally broke him. "I ended up with an ulcer from that," Steve said. "That was my last." Multiple sources verify this. Wikipedia, IMDb, Greatest Physiques, Old School Labs. The injury is documented. The timeline is confirmed. Without that documentation, relocating your own shoulder and continuing to film would sound impossible. But Steve did it, and the evidence exists. Number 10. The 60-year-old calves, late 1980s. Steve Reeves was 60 years old. He'd retired from competition in 1950, retired from films in 1968. It had been decades since he'd trained seriously. Most bodybuilders lose massive size after retirement. Muscle atrophies. Definition fades. It's biology. But Steve wasn't most bodybuilders. John Little, respected bodybuilding writer, was interviewing him. They were discussing calf training, old school methods, classic techniques, just a casual conversation. Then Steve suddenly stood up, without warning, and rolled up his pants leg. John Little stared and couldn't believe what he was seeing. Steve's calf muscle was massive, still defined, still carved, at least 18 inches around, Little later wrote, and so beautifully formed that it looked as though it had been sculpted by Michelangelo out of living marble. 18 inches at age 60, the same measurement he had at age 21 when he won Mr. America. And at age 60, Little emphasized in his article for Iron Man magazine, no steroids, no modern supplements, no intensive training, just the muscle he'd built naturally in the 1940s, still intact 40 years later. In 1993, at age 67, biographer Chris LeClaire described Steve's appearance as unsettlingly youthful. This is the ultimate proof. Natural muscle, built through iron and discipline, maintained through decades with minimal effort. The chemistry wasn't there, the genetics were. Without John Little's eyewitness account in Iron Man magazine, a 60-year-old man maintaining 18-inch calves would be dismissed as impossible. But Little documented it. He saw it. He measured it. And it proves what Steve always claimed. His body was natural, built in an era before chemicals. And it lasted forever. You've seen the measurements that shouldn't exist. The strength feats witnessed by legends. The comeback in 7 weeks. The box office phenomenon. The chains he swung at full force. The shoulder he relocated himself. And the calves that stayed perfect for 40 years. If these moments weren't documented, they'd sound like movie scripts. Too dramatic. Too perfect. Too impossible. But they were documented. Competition records from the AAU. Eyewitness accounts from John. Box office numbers from 25 countries. Military service records. Film production documentation. Magazine articles written by men who were there. Steve Reeves didn't just act like Hercules. He lived like him. And unlike the myths, his story has proof. Which moment shocked you the most? The fingertip deadlift? The 7-week transformation? The 60-year-old calves that looked like marble? Let us know in the comments. Like, share, and subscribe for more stories about real people who did impossible things.